Well, hello there.
Man, am I glad to see you.
Well, thanks. I'm also very glad to see you, buddy.
Yeah, but I wasn't sure I'd see you yesterday because there was a tornado a quarter mile from my house,
Holy
and
crap.
my neighbors were freaking out. There was text messages going around in the neighborhood that everybody needed to take cover. I received multiple emergency broadcast system alerts on my phone,
Oh, geez.
and the instruction was go to a lower level or to a basement. Of course, there are no basements in Florida. And stay away from windows.
Yep.
And I live in a house that is almost entirely windows. The only place in my house that did not have a window was the coat closet under my stairs. And I sat there with my dog eating pretzels and waited out, the raging storm outside. And I'm here to see you again. And I'm so happy to see you, my friend.
Well, you know what? Now I'm doubly happy to see you.
Mhm.
I grew up in Florida, and the one thing that's always terrified me is tornadoes. And now I live in an area, Chicago. We do get tornadoes. The Out of any natural disaster, it's the most terrifying to me because you can't predict them. Hurricanes you know about, and they're terrible, but you know about them. Tornadoes come out of nowhere. So I'm very happy that you and the pup are safe, and
Yeah.
happy to see you. Fred,
What
what
was the weather, Fred? Yeah. What's the weather like in San Diego?
Well, first I want to point out we have a problem with earthquakes as well that are not that
those
predictable.
those are
But I've been here since '96 after coming from South Florida, and I'm in San Diego. It's 70 degrees. We've got some wind. I don't see any tornadoes in sight though. I think we're going to be safe.
Lucky man. Well, that was scary. I gotta be honest. I don't take these things terribly seriously usually. And I looked up at the sky and it was green,
Yeah,
which
that's
is
never good.
an indicator. Yeah.
Do you
And
know
that freaked me out.
do you know that there has to be, if I'm not mistaken, there has to be 19 meteorological um boxes that need to be checked in order for a tornado to form and touch ground. Like barometric pressure and wind speed and humidity and all those things, they have to align in order for a tornado to actually form.
Well, things are getting worse. And the New York Times actually had an article this weekend, and it will pivot to business,
Of course.
that this was the warmest year by an order of magnitude recorded, and that clearly we're seeing the impact of the water of the ocean, temperature of the water of the ocean is rising, and I don't know very much about it, but hopefully innovation and people, really, when I say people, I mean governments coming together in material way, will lead us down a better path. It's pretty scary right now.
Oh, it is. And you know what? Maybe one of the budding and current entrepreneurs that are listening to this podcast right now are solving these issues for us for the future. So that's kind of exciting.
Yeah, you know what? It's true. There's a lot of innovation. Great article a few months back about the whitest white paint ever created. It was in a laboratory, I believe, at Purdue University, and it would substantially reduce heat. I forget the details, but look it up. You know
Yeah.
what? We'll try to put it in the show notes because that was kind of interesting.
Yeah.
But hey,
Very
let's tell our audience about our guest. We've got an amazing, amazing, amazing guest today.
so very cool. It is my honor, of course, to introduce everyone to Mr. Fred Cary. And Fred is a powerhouse entrepreneur who has founded over 10 companies worth in the billions of dollars. In the cutthroat world of entrepreneurship and sales, few have carved a path quite like Fred Cary. Fred's journey from his first startup, Boxlot, which was an early competitor to eBay but failed to take off, to a maestro of one successful startup after another, all the way to his current role as CEO of IdeaPros, a company that helps entrepreneurs turn their ideas into profitable ventures. Fred's story is a masterclass in and about vision and grit. Fred's a big deal, and don't just take my word for it. His weekly show of entrepreneurs have drawn over 8 million viewers, and he has over 500,000 followers on Instagram. And he doesn't even dance. This top 1%
That we
of
know of.
That's true, actually. This top 1% business professional has a personal brand that's both a call to action and a challenge. And before I tell you what it is, You may want to go, cover the ears of the kids, cover the ears of your pets. It's fuck average, be legendary. And for the record, the first word is spelled with an asterisk, so it looks better in print than spoken out loud. It's one of my favorite words.
I think it sounds better personally, but
I love that word.
The eyes of the beholder.
I'm exactly. So, Fred, with a hearty welcome to the Braving Business Podcast, we're ready to unpack the unorthodox, the unconventional, and the outright legendary. Thank you so much for joining us.
I know I'm going to enjoy this a lot. And by the way, I have a registered trademark on fuck average be legendary. And I put the asterisk not on the U, I put it where the C is, so it still looks like fuck even with the asterisk.
That's right. I noticed he had another trademark on something else. I forget what it was. And I think it's one of our questions today. There was a trademark on a sentence, and I was like, wow, that's brilliant. Fred, thanks for being with us. I appreciate it. I know you're a busy guy and in demand. I'd love to start, as we do often, by asking you to tell us where things started for you. It'd be great if you could give your backstory. And if you don't mind, take us right up to Boxlot, because we have specific questions about that venture.
Okay, I won't do the 3-hour show version of that. I became an entrepreneur not because I felt I could be brilliant, but because I felt that I didn't fit. I became an entrepreneur because I didn't think anybody would have me and give me the credit that I thought I could bring to any outside organization. So really by force rather than anything else. I started my first company at 24, started another one at 26 after the first one was acquired, and then became an attorney accidentally, truly, for about 10 years before I got into starting Boxlot. But that was in 1998. And I had been living in South Florida in Fort Lauderdale. And when I wanted to get back into that entrepreneurship world, I just felt that Southern California was the place for me to start my entrepreneurial career over again.
That's great. Of course, San Diego, not a bad place to set your roots.
No.
So let's talk about Boxlot then. So from what I understand, it's was an early competitor to eBay. And before we talk about how you reinvented Boxlot into something else and sell it for, just a paltry $125 million, the business nearly failed. And so let's kind of hang out there, talk about the near failure. What was the vision behind Boxlot initially? And how were you able to recognize fairly early on that you needed to pivot and really pivot hard?
Yeah, and pivoting hard, by the way, if you're not prepared to do that with any business, that you should not be an entrepreneur, because that's what's going to be required every time. We're inventing things that don't exist. How the hell are we going to get it right first time every time? It doesn't work that way. But with Boxlot, eBay was just really starting to come out and getting popular, and I felt that there was room for another competitor in that field, which turns out there wasn't. But that's very unusual. Usually there is. Uber, Lyft, for one little example, and I thought we're going to do it, but we're going to do it better. We're going to have better products. We're going to have better things. We're going to have better technology, and we're going to appeal to people who normally would go to an auction type environment. And the reason that eBay really took off and we didn't is because those type of people weren't on the internet in 1998, 1999. They were going to real auction houses and doing their work there, And so the $10, $15, $20 item that was what was on eBay is really what propelled them with a whole new audience buying crap really at discount prices, and we couldn't compete with that.
So at some point you realized, and it was pretty early on, because I believe I believe that I read that you sold the business for $125 million after 18 months. Is that 18 months from founding or 18 months from pivoting?
No, that's 18 months from pivoting.
From pivoting. Gotcha.
We had been doing it for about a year before that.
Gotcha. So let's talk about that. You've said that experience, that the turning around of Boxlot into a completely different enterprise, turned around and reshaped your philosophy that helped you then ultimately form years later IdeaPros. We're going to get into what IdeaPros does, which I think is fascinating. But can you first share with our audience what did you learn? What was it that you took away from this experience?
Yeah, and by the way, it's IdeaPros. But you have to learn when things aren't working. You know, as founders, we go way too long doing something. It doesn't mean that where you are and what you're trying to achieve is not going to work. It's just what you're trying to do in that space is not going to work, and you have to try to find something else. And that's why the word pivot is used so often when you're talking about entrepreneurship and when you're launching new companies. So for us, we just saw that we just couldn't do it, but we also saw that everybody in the world was trying to get into that space. And so you kind of reflect sometimes and figure out what's the real problem here. What's the underlying component of everything that's going on in this auction space, and can we do something to make it better? And as it turned out, the technology wasn't there. You know, it was really hard. You'd place a bid, then you have to come back a half an hour later, see if somebody outbid you. Then you couldn't do incremental bidding. And so the infrastructure to support this burgeoning sector of the economy was not there. And so I said, let's build the infrastructure. And we switched from trying to sell trinkets, including a $2 million stamp, by the way. We went to looking at the infrastructure and looking at what was really needed. And so we turned into a technology company. We started doing incremental bidding. We created bid or buy. We created reverse bidding. We literally the entire ecosystem of what all the auction platforms became depended on were things that we created. And that's why we quickly became a company that people wanted, or other companies wanted to do something with, because we were building the infrastructure to make it better, regardless of who was going to win.
I love that. I love that. It's like you were making, not so much doubling down, but you definitely pivoted, but you also made yourself invaluable in that space. It sounds like you took the learnings that you had from this auction universe and kind of took a step back and said, okay, well, we can't compete head to head. So let's really try to figure out how to make this whole thing better. And that paid off for you.
Yeah. Our horse was not going to win the race, so why not build the racetrack?
There's a t-shirt right there.
Yeah.
Yep. T-shirt. So let's get into IdeaPros, which is a company that creates world-class entrepreneurs and helps them turn their ideas into profitable ventures, and described as the world's first super venture partner, TM. What
there it is. That's the other one.
Yeah,
I knew there was another.
What exactly does super venture partner mean? And how does what you do and how you do it differentiate from other traditional venture capitalists?
Yeah. I wanted to create something that was the biggest thing that I had done. And I've created 10 different companies. 2 of them went public, 2 others got acquired by public companies. And we have a couple of private ones that are doing close to $1 billion a year in revenue. And I wanted to make something bigger. And so I looked for the place where there was a big market that was growing rapidly, there was a big demand for, and it wasn't being served well. And that's entrepreneurship. The reason that it wasn't being served well is all those other companies, like the venture capital companies and even angels and private equity, they're serving 5% of that market. They're serving the people that have gone to elite schools, that have 60% of whom have graduate degrees from those schools. The professor can call up a venture capitalist and get a paper napkin idea, $10 million investment, and the rest, The real entrepreneurs that make up the backbone of America are 30 to 55 years old. They're business people. They're advancing in their career. They're doing really well. They have an infrastructure around them, but they hate their lives. And they want to jump off onto their own. They're well funded because they save their money, but they don't know what it is they should be doing. And so I started IdeaPros to serve the great majority of people. And when I say super venture partner, it's because from the idea stage, we work with the partner side by side and do everything from idea validation to market research to strategy to app development if it's an app, to engineering if it's a physical product, the whole persona, naming, branding, positioning, launching, getting access to capital. So we're there as literally their co-founder, a very experienced co-founder in an environment where entrepreneurs before us really had, it's like if you needed brain surgery, they go online and they could find brain surgery equipment. That's what exists for entrepreneurs. And we thought we shouldn't be giving them stuff. We should be giving them knowledge, companionship, co-founder status, build better things, create better entrepreneurs, and end up with hopefully a better country at some point.
I love this.
Yeah, I want to get into the better country, so put a pin in that. We'll come back to it later on, but let's. There's something I found online that I wanted to ask you about. IdeaPros has put out there, and I quote, that you've turned the VC model on its head, and specifically you say other VCs lose money on 90% of their deals. IdeaPros make money on virtually every deal we do while preserving the same long-term passive income where unicorns are born, close quote. And obviously that sounds like what anyone would aspire for. What is it that you're doing differently? I mean, why is it not something that's being more widely done by other VCs?
What we do is something that other VCs don't want to do, don't know how to do, and don't even think that there's a market for. The reason we're upside down is the people that come to us pay us. It's not like I'm going to give you $1 million and you're going to go burn it because you've never done this before, and I'm going to bet on 10 different companies or 100 companies and 90 of them are going to fail. People pay us. So I looked at my history, and the things that I did best are the deals that I had skin in the game. And so when people come to us, they come at the raw idea stage, and I basically tell them, I'm going to bet on you if you bet on us, and you help us create everything we're going to do, because we're going to do about $500,000 to $1 million worth of things. You need to have some skin in the game. And typically people will pay us around $100,000 up front to work with us as the co-founder, and they'll give us a percentage of the company that we form together. But this ends up saving them 75% of what it was going to cost for them to do it. And also it's going to enable them to work with people who've been there and done this before, and understand how to find that hole in the marketplace where you can fit in there and compete well against much bigger organizations, because you found a hole that's not being addressed well. And so that's why we're different. We make money on all those deals, but now we have like 400 deals that we own 30% of. Now we have that same passive long-term income that a venture capitalist will make, but we help nurture those companies and grow them from a seedling. And so we believe we're going to have a much higher success rate than the 10% success rate that average venture capital firms have.
And is that the track record that you've, I think you've been at it 6 or 7 years. Is that how it's panning out?
Yeah. We've had a couple of big, 10 times, 20 times exits already, way early. I wasn't anticipating any for another 2 or 3 years, but we've had a couple already. We have several of our companies gone out and raised millions and millions of dollars, and doing well and growing. And we have new ones launching every week. In fact, I'm going next week. 4 of our companies are getting ready for a next level of funding, and we're actually going and speaking to about 100 venture capital firms that want to look at our deals.
Wow. Wow. Is this like any industry, any, different type of, whether it's manufacturing or it's service or whatever?
Um, Pretty much, but I would say that kind of the next generation, hugely costly, very complicated things that some of the biggest venture capital firms might tackle, we wouldn't do. We're not going to do. We're not going to take an idea that's going to need $100 million to get it to fruition. We'll do a lot of apps. We'll do a lot of consumer goods, beauty, health, clothing, entertainment, but things that you can go live with $1 million or less. But they're all over the place.
Very cool. Very, very cool. So when you're looking at entrepreneurship in general, like how much in your personal belief, how much of success in business is about actual preparation versus good fortune? Like, do you believe that luck is a definable factor, or do people just make their own luck?
There was there was an analysis done by somebody a couple of years ago that looking at really, really well-funded companies and trying to figure out why some of them just completely, well, we said fuck, so I could say shit the bed, and others others just did really well. And it really became not a question of luck, not even a question of the hard work involved, because they were all working really hard. It really became a question of timing. And timing seems to be the biggest factor. If you look at companies like Airbnb, nobody would invest in them. Nobody believed in the model. It's the average venture capitalist kicked them out the door saying, wait a minute, you are going to expect people to allow strangers to stay in their homes? Get the hell out of my office. But the timing was right, because people needed side hustles. The economy wasn't good. People needed extra ways to make more money. And the perfect timing of that idea is something that really made it work. And so that's the biggest thing you need. So luck, only in the sense of timing. And if you're doing it right, that part of it's not lucky. It's because you've been motivated to do this because you're seeing a need, and you're going forward with that need. The companies that are really lucky are few and far between. Instagram, 3 years into their existence, no revenue model, 13 employees, got acquired for $100 billion, and it's kind of insane. But they did so because of what they had going forward, and what they were going to be, and the fact that they had 100 million users. So that's the rare exception, though, to the rule.
Well, let's dig into that, and I'm going to push you a little bit on it, because I think luck. I get your point that luck with timing is critical, but that isn't the only luck. And in my opinion, I think that you also need to have, and it's a combination of luck. We're actually going to get into some of that in a little bit when we talk about your thoughts on what investors get wrong when they talk to, what entrepreneurs get wrong rather when they talk to investors. But there is an element of having people and or organizations, whether they're investors, strategic partners, in some cases, potential employees, see in you and lean into you in a way that, if you will, manifests luck, right? So if you're able to get a key strategic partner to lean into what it is that you're doing, then of course, if the timing is not right, then it doesn't matter. But if you happen to have a good idea at the right time, and you get lucky in the sense that you get the right partner backing you, that is a greater predictor of success than that you yourself are brilliant and have the best idea.
Yeah.
What's your reaction to that?
Yeah, I agree. But first, I do want to correct myself. I said 100 billion. It was a billion. They had 100 million subscribers on Instagram. So I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah.
Not everybody thought I was an idiot.
Doubt
Even
that
then,
highly.
Yeah, no one's thinking you're an idiot. No way.
Well, thank you. Even in that type of case, really hard work is what's going to take to make those things happen. If you have this opportune moment with some big, huge gorilla wants to work with you for one reason or another, you're going to have to go through flaming hoops to make that happen. There's no big company that just overnight will work with you. There are many, many layers of red tape, many different things that you need to do and know. You have to be really, really sharp in every element of your company, because people are going to question you. And at the end, after you've gone through all those layers, there's the big monster, which is the CEO or the chairman of the board of that big company, who's going to come in and say, well, what's this all about? And who's this little asshole? And you got to start all over again, and they can crush you in about a half a second. And so even when you get opportunities like that, it's just, nobody's going to just wake up in the morning and send you a check. You got to work your ass off, and you're going to, it takes resilience. I think people ask me, what's the word for entrepreneurs that every entrepreneur should know? And I say perseverance, because that's what it takes. If you don't have perseverance, even with those lucky breaks you get, if you don't have perseverance to wade your way through all the crap you're going to be facing, you're never going to make it.
Well, I don't know if you know this, but both the words perseverance and resilience are in the subtitle of our podcast name. So
No
Breaking
way.
Businesses is about that. Yeah. I mean, our entire podcast is about those two things.
Yeah.
Because
well,
I could
good.
not agree with you more. From my own personal experience, PJ's as well. We've had highs, we've had lows, we've had businesses that did extremely well. I've sold multiple businesses. I've also had horrible, horrible defeats. And you need to be able to lift yourself up, which isn't as easy as it sounds. But if you're able to do that, you can be an entrepreneur. If you're someone that upon defeat tucks tail, go work for someone else. It's just not, you will not have success upon success upon success as an entrepreneur. You will suffer defeat, and you need to be able to recover from that. And obviously you had that experience. You did. And as did practically every guest I think that we've had so far that came from the business world, including, frankly, we've had politicians, we've had the former Inspector General of the United States Army. They've all really shared that same experience. They had setbacks and they recovered.
Yeah. You know what, though? I don't think we've had someone on that started a company and then a year later pivoted, and then 2 years later sold it for 125 million.
I don't know. Eddie Wilson may have. We don't know. He sold 90 companies. So
he may, yeah, out of that
right.
huge number. Yeah, possibly. But I mean, Fred, I'm just fascinated and inspired by the fact that you were able to start something and grind, just like you're saying, like keep the perseverance going. You got, you're going full throttle on what you believe is your future, and yet you still had the wherewithal to sit there and have the humility and have the good common sense to say, you know what, I'm not gonna, I don't see me winning this race with, like you said, with the horse you had. So why don't we just change the game and make it more in our favor and create something that's better and that people actually need to depend in this space. And I would clap, but it sounds weird on the podcast. So I applaud you.
We need clap sounds, but you know what? It actually leads perfectly into the next question, which is about failing fast, right? So I know it's a motto that you live by, and I've heard you speak about it. So actually, I thought we would start with defining it, because you hear that term, fail fast, fail fast. And I don't know that it's super clear what it even means to fail fast. I mean, on some level, it can feel like a contradiction to perseverance. I mean, doesn't perseverance mean you don't fail fast? You're resilient. So like how fast is failing fast, and how do you make sure that you're not quitting too soon?
Yeah, failing fast is probably a crappy term because it kind of means the opposite of that. Figure out when you need to pivot, right? When, like, failing fast was the example of Boxlot. We went down a road, found it wasn't right, and we went down another road. Or it can be, get your app out there. If you're building an app, get it out there, even when it's not pretty, because your audience ultimately is going to tell you what you should be building. And if you're waiting and you're building all these different components and features that people end up going to not want, you're not going to have the bandwidth left to build what they really do want. So when we say fail fast, it means get your concept, get your idea, get it out there in front of the people that you think want it, and then forget all the things that aren't working, move past those and move into the things that do work. The CEO of LinkedIn, or the original CEO of LinkedIn, said famously, if you're not embarrassed by version 1 of your product, you've waited way too long. And that's kind of the fail fast mantra. Get it out there, get it in front of people, experiment, see what's going on. Don't sit spending the next 5 years in a laboratory and just having that opportunity pass you by.
Fred, it's a famous saying, and I've read his book. I think it's wise. I get the point. But is it? I mean, there's a fine line, right? I mean, not on two levels. On the one hand, if you really truly have something unique and you put it out there too soon, that potentially opens the door to other people to see what you're doing. I'm not a big believer that you should be, fearful as hell that the big guys are looking, because they're not. So that is a lesser risk, in my opinion. The bigger risk is that you turn off consumers, that the initial experience is so off the mark and not consistent where you want to go, that the perspective people have is that you're nowhere near adding value. So how do you, what's the fine balance? Because there has to be one, right?
Yeah, that's the problem with one sentence quotes, is that you can pick them apart and look at it in many different ways. I think that what he meant was the fact that find the core value in what you're delivering. You have to have that. You should not launch before you figure out what it is that you have and have that kind of product market fit that everybody talks about. You need to understand what that core value is, and don't build these 47 other features around it that people may never want. Find that core value, the value proposition that you're leading with, and get it out there in the marketplace so that you can start engaging your customers and figure out what really they need to have on top of that. But you're right. I mean, never just throw something out there that just is not well thought out and doesn't really have a place in the market, because you will get an avalanche of 1-star reviews and you may not be able to recover from it.
Wow. Yeah. Just when I hear the words fail fast, I think of the book of my life and how that is the chapter of all of my high school romances, was failing fast. So it is such an important thing to keep in mind, though. And for those who are out there listening now, who are contemplating a pivot, what do you think, or what would you suggest that they look for as an indicator for the time to fail fast, to cut bait?
There is no black and white answer to that, but I would tell you, you can feel it. You can have that momentum. You can be buried one way or another. In fact, with IdeaPros, it happened to me last year. I mean, we literally, and I told you that the nut was $100,000 to work with us. If you didn't have it, you were quote unquote dead to me. And we had 100,000 people put in applications saying that they were going to give us $100,000. That's $10 billion of demand. We could only handle 400 companies out of all that demand. And with that, we were getting buried. There's so much heavy lifting. There's so many things to do. At the beginning of last year, despite the fact that we'd made 25 million bucks, I stopped taking new partners because I knew it was not going to be sustainable. I took $1 million out of my pocket and threw it into the company to sustain us while we figured out what we needed to do to reset. And we have reset now. And now if you go to ideapros.com, the very first thing you're going to see is free membership. So we take everybody, people that don't have any money and want to learn about entrepreneurship. They get valuable content every single week. And we have a proper sales funnel that works from free to a few $100s to a few thousand to the kind of the elite partnership co-founder model that was our only bread and butter before. So you can feel it coming. You can't keep up with the demand, or there's no demand, and one of those two things are happening that causes you to have to kind of really pivot hard on what you're doing. You'll feel the pressure.
I think it's interesting, and I wholeheartely agree. And I also can recall an experience where I was CEO one of my companies. I had investors, Wall Street investors, who really resisted the pivot. They fell in love with the original thesis of the business. I, as CEO, felt in my bones that we had to pivot, and I was not able to do it. And so, one factor when you're thinking about taking money, and we're about to pivot to investors, is you really need to be thinking about more than is this party capable of writing a check, but also is this party a party that has the right mindset about the realities of entrepreneurship, and able to recognize that sometimes falling in love with your thesis, when the evidence begins to tell you that you're not right or not right anymore, is going to be the end of you. So let's pivot to talking about investors. I've seen other interviews where you've talked about the fact that many entrepreneurs, most entrepreneurs, don't impress investors and don't raise funds because they focus on the wrong thing or things in their pitch, what you call their quote unquote amazingness, instead of what you think they should focus on. I'd love for you to share with our audience what you think entrepreneurs do wrong when it comes to pitching to investors, and what you think they should talk about and why.
Yeah. By the way, I have a master class. Part of that, all the free stuff that we do now, it's called Pitchcraft, and I talk about that. As a founder, you really want to get this amazing story out. And nobody's ever done this before. And I woke up as this brilliant idea. We've been working on it for the last year. We don't have any competitors. We're going to revolutionize the whole world, and we're going to be the next this or that, or Amazon or Uber, or whatever the next thing is that you want to be. That scares the shit out of investors. The very first thing they start thinking about is like, well, how many times have you changed the world before? And I'm not here to be part of this revolution. For an investor, they want to see evolution. Drop the R. They want to know that, hey, look, we're not smarter than anybody else, but here's what we found out. There's 3 companies in this space. They all became billion-dollar companies within 2 or 3 years, and they did so by following the steps that we're about to take. But what happened here is there's one key thing that they haven't provided any of their customers. And there's this huge demand with all of these customers. There's all these 1-star reviews that they're not getting this one thing. And we created this one thing that all these customers want. That's an evolution, because you created something better in an industry that's growing and a demand that's pent up. You've shown this kind of difference between the supply and the demand, and that's what investors want. There's this big difference. There's a proven market. There's a hole in that marketplace. There's customers that are there wanting this solution, and we don't give a shit if you're smarter than anybody else. You guys made that solution happen, and that's what makes investors want to invest. And the other thing is, every slide should have a number, because an investor is not buying your dream; they're buying a financial instrument. What is this instrument? What am I paying for it? Why am I paying this much for it? When am I going to be able to exit? How much am I going to get? And then finally, why are you guys the ones that are going to make it all happen? That's all they care about. And if you stray from that and waste your time on things that are not important, you're never going to get capital.
Let me ask you a follow-up question. It's not. It's an adjacent question to that. One other variable that I've heard about from I invest in startups, and I'm also a startup entrepreneur, and so I've been on both sides of the table.
Mm-hmm.
And I am often turned off when an entrepreneur comes to me, and even in the case of an entrepreneur that is in fact talking about building a better mousetrap on top of something that exists, which I wholeheartedly agree that those are the best opportunities. Sure, you can create a new marketplace. You can be Uber, but good luck with that. There's a reason there are only a few of those guys.
Yeah.
What turns me off is when someone comes to me, they don't have a business model yet, or they've not begun to operate, and they're trying to raise $10 million. They've proven nothing to no one, and they're trying to do that. What's your perspective on what is the sweet spot when you're out there maybe you're pre-revenue or very early revenue. What's the sweet spot of what, what looks and feels like you have, your feet planted firmly on the ground?
Yeah. That sweet spot is whatever you can get. And if you don't start, you're not going to get anywhere. The back to Airbnb, those guys were out trying to raise $1.5 million at no, they were trying to raise $150,000 at a $1.5 million valuation. They couldn't even get that money. And look what they became. They only became that because they went out and found whatever it is they needed to do to get that money. That initial valuation, the first investors in Amazon invested at something like a 500,000 valuation. You can't be all full of yourself. You have to understand you're never going to get to step 2 unless you get the capital to leave step 1. And so the companies that are pre-revenue and that have not done that before, they need to be modest, and they should be lucky that anybody's willing to bet on them. Look, if Elon Musk walked into the room and wanted money, he's going to get a much higher valuation. But if you've not done this before, you're lucky that some people are going to bet on you. And by the way, if you take investors like you that also are business owners, CEOs that have had exits on their own, then there's a value there that's going to help you get to that next level that's well beyond the capital that you're going to get from an investor. Choose wisely, be modest in your valuation, and go kick ass.
Next time I'm on Shark Tank, I'm bringing you with, Fred.
Did you know PJ was on Shark Tank, friend?
Really?
He was. Yeah,
it
was.
One of our guys, I think he got $1 million from them, and another one got kicked off the stage. But what did you do? Did they boot you off? You were asking for 50 million?
Oh yeah. I actually wasn't asking for much. But listening to you talk about, like what's important to the people that you're pitching to, I didn't do that, right? I came in with, I know exactly what needs to be done with this company. I've done it before. It's been very successful. I'm just trying to relaunch it. I got all the answers, but that doesn't correlate to what they're looking for. And I was, as prepared as I thought I wasn't prepared to talk to the points that you are talking about, which is what's most salient for them and not for me. And that's 1,000,000,000% on me. And you've just helped me out more than a lot of therapy bills. So I really appreciate that.
Hey, look, there's one other element in those investors, right? And that's ego. They have the money in their bank account because they did some shit right.
Yeah.
And they don't want to hear that you have all the answers and they don't have any, because they're not doing this just to make some extra money. They're doing it because it's fun, exciting. They want to help you grow. They want to be part of it, especially, those pre-seed investors, other than mom and dad. They have a lot to offer. And if you don't consider the ego element of it as well, then you're lost.
Yeah. I was so sure that they were going to invest that I never thought about a no. I was so because, I had created a company. I was doing 3.5 million in sales. I was doing that part-time with no overhead at a 77% profit margin. And so I'm like, who wouldn't want to invest in this?
Yeah,
right?
Is it too late? Can I invest now?
We can talk after this.
All right.
But yeah, I mean, it was nuts. So next time I'm bringing you with it. Just I love the fact that I keep saying, keep thinking of you like just taking a step back, but I love how you keep like this little bit of a distance when you're looking at everything, because that cooler heads will prevail mindset, I think, is so key. And like I said, next time I'm bringing you with me. So right. let's build on what we just talked about in regards to the whole pitching thing and everything. When entrepreneurs, obviously we get things right and we also get things wrong to investors. Besides what you shared, what do you think are like 2 or 3 things that you would look for as an investor in a new venture where you're like, you know what, that sounds like a winner to me?
I'm not sure this answers the question directly, but it definitely the first thing I need to consider. And it's something that I would tell every one of your listeners, that if you're going to be the CEO of a company in today's world, you need to be a financial CEO. You need to know all your numbers, as painful as that is and as boring as accounting is. You need to know your numbers. You need to know where you are, where you want to go, how you're going to get there, what happens if things aren't working out well. You really need to know that. And if you have somebody that you're talking to that by the time they get to slide 3 and you ask them, well, what about if you can't get this partnership with company X, and they're sitting there like looking at you, not knowing how to answer, then you're not going to invest in them, because at the end, the thing that people invest in at the very end, almost your last slides, is you. And if you can't pull it off intellectually, emotionally, with the experience that you need to show them, the fortitude, the grit you need to show them, I'm not gonna do it. And there are those potential investors that are out there that are going to say to you, you know what, this is really great, and they may have said that to you, PJ, that this is really great, but go out and do these 3 things, and then come back and talk to me in 6 months, and we'll see. And if you don't have the fortitude to basically say, I've been working this day and night for the last 6 months. We know exactly where we are. We know exactly what we have to do. And those are our great ideas. And we can, in our next round, maybe consider them. But right now, this is what we need. This is the valuation. This is what we're doing with it. And are you in or are you out? If you don't have that kind of strength, if you're letting them push you around, I wouldn't invest in you. So that's the one thing. The other thing is, again, an understanding of the fact that I don't want to pick on you, PJ, but that if you think you know all the answers, which is almost the opposite of what I just said, that concerns me as well. If you can't, if you show that you're like rock solid in where you are, and you know all the elements of it, and you don't really need anybody else's help or support, you're kind of just there to give them a favor, that's something that's concerning to me as well. Those are probably the top 2 things. Not knowing enough or knowing too much, the opposite ends of the spectrum.
The story of my life.
Well, it's so interesting. I do, as you were speaking of the second and you called it out yourself, it seems a contradiction to the first, which is not in of itself disqualifying. As we said before, failing fast on some levels can seem like a contradiction to perseverance, but it's not. It's all in the how. And ultimately, as you talk to investors, come in there with humility, but confidence. And again, words that may seem like they're difficult to put together. And that is true, which is why the vast majority of people who pitch don't get funded, because they find it very difficult to land that sweet spot. So humble but confident. And the second thing is, be prepared to listen. Be prepared to listen. You're talking oftentimes to people that have accomplished huge things in their careers. They have seen things succeed. They have seen things fail. And whether or not you get money out of them, the insights they share with you are worth a substantial amount of money. So take the opportunity not to just tell them everything you know and try to stop them from speaking and tell them why they're wrong. Listen very well. You can take away their feedback, reflect on it later, and you can come to your own conclusions about whether it was right or wrong. But at the moment that it's occurring, first of all, it's awfully discourteous to not let them say whatever it is they need to say. Second, you're missing an opportunity.
Yep.
So some advice.
Yeah, no, that's very well said. When I train our folks to do pitches, the very first thing, even before the problem statement, is kind of the winter is coming. The Game of Thrones, everybody was saying that for 3 seasons. Nobody knew what the hell it meant. But there's a seismic shift in the world. And that's where you start getting the buy-in. That's where you start trying to pull things in. but raising money and building companies is all about storytelling. If you can't tell a good story, you're not gonna get there. And so with my companies, I always have them start with, you know, the big idea. Winter is coming. There's a shift in the world. For Airbnb, it would be that people need money like they never needed before. There's all these opportunities with these homes and free space. And if you can't get past that, don't waste the investor's time. Don't waste your own time getting into the problem and the solution. You know, get the buy-in right from the very beginning. And that's what I do. I mean, we're out raising capital right now, and I start with the fact that when I was a kid, when you thought about rich people, you thought about the doctors, the lawyers that your parents wanted you to become, the business owner down the street, movie stars, the athletes. That's what you thought about. But now you think about entrepreneurs. And it's all about entrepreneurs. The infrastructure is not there. There's this massive shift in the world where everybody wants to be an entrepreneur. Even people that are out making $750,000 a year in corporate America want to leave and want to do something for themselves. And there's no support system to really help them out. And that's the big story. That's the big idea. That's the winter is coming statement. If some guy says to you, that's bullshit. Don't waste your time. Don't waste their time. Just, you know, go off. And the only way that you're going to make it through your slides is exactly what you said. Listen, because you need to be prepared to say different things based upon what you're hearing. And if you're not hearing, you're going to go through, oh, wow, I made it through my 12 slides. Great. And let's see if they really love us or not. But if you listen and engage and tell a story that people want to hear, then you have a real opportunity to pivot inside your own presentation to get to where they want you to get.
For sure. And I would add to that sometimes you'll walk away, you'll reflect, and you'll have an insight. And if that insight is rooted in some valuable bit of information or advice that you were given, again, courtesy alone means it's a very good idea to reach out to them and let them know the insight, regardless of whether they fund you or not.
Yeah.
It says something about your approach to life and business, that you both took the advice, contemplated it, came away with a takeaway, and had the courtesy to reach out.
Yep.
Let's end with a little brevity. You know, you have become a social media sensation. Hundreds of thousands of followers on Instagram. I'm a follower on Instagram. How does it feel to be, you know, sort of a celebrity? And how do you recommend entrepreneurs use social media?
Well, I can't dance. One of the things you were talking about in the very beginning. So you were spot on. I do the white man shuffle. So I'm not very good at that. I feel humbled, actually, that people are listening to me. And one of the key elements, when I was saying in the very beginning about building a better America, one of the key elements in what I try to teach, not only on social media, but with all the people that come in as our partners, is how to be purpose-driven. You know, how to think about always doing the right thing. And every day I do one post, and it's me. Nobody edits it. I don't have a big team around me. I'll get my webcam and I will say something, and then I'll put some music on it and some captions and spit it out there. And I think that there's good information that people need, and there's honest information. Though people don't need to hear about the fact that if you give them, you know, you give me $500 and I'll make you a billionaire. They don't need to hear that shit. Now you need to really have some genuine content. How do I be better? How can I be better at home so I can be a better leader and have a better company? How do I become a better human being? And so for me, I have real gratitude that more and more people are listening to that message. So that part of it, I think it's pretty awesome. I'm not getting attacked in malls yet, but I do get pornographic materials from women all the time for some stupid reason.
Is that right?
I can understand why women don't like dick pics. It's troubling at times.
If we had a bingo card on what would not come up in today's interview with the legendary Fred Cary, that would have not, that you would have won with that.
Yeah,
No,
yeah.
nothing.
Dick pics. Not,
Fortunately, I do have staff that looks at those things, and
Uh,
most of the time they've been filtered
the
before.
question is, do you get dick pics? Well, don't answer that. Don't
Yeah,
answer that.
yeah,
You
no,
know,
no.
PJ,
yeah.
I'll give you the, go ahead. Yeah.
I thought you were
You
asking if
take,
I
you
said
pick, no,
Fred
this is a
Dick
hot
pic.
potato. You pick it up. I don't know where we're going next, and you're
Yeah.
better. You're quicker on your feet than I am.
So Fred, you were talking about your vision for a greater America. So
Yeah.
let's bring it back to a little something where we can all feel a little bit more comfortable. And that is the betterment of our fantastic country.
Yeah.
What's your vision? What are you trying to achieve? How are you achieving it? How can we help?
Thank you. It seems like the easy route to success is the path that people want to take more and more. And the more information we have at our fingertips, the less of it we use. We have become very, very shallow in how deeply we go. Like when I first thought or saw the internet, I'm like, wow, everybody has access to everything. How smart are we going to be? But we're becoming the opposite, because the very first thing that we search is something that we believe, and there's support for it. There's 57,548 freaks around America that believe exactly what you believe. And so I'm just trying to make better leaders. And if we can make better leaders, that's where it all starts. Because if you're a really good leader and your company has 10 people, 500 people, 5,000 people, 50,000 people, and you're a better leader, you can affect a whole lot of people to be better, and to be more honest, and to be resilient, and to accept failure as a part of life. And so that's my goal. I literally want to change, and this sounds hokey now, but that's been my mission here for the last 6 years. I want to change the lives of 10,000 people, to the point where it makes some impact on them and drives them enough to want to change others' lives. So if I can do 10,000, and those 10,000 can do 1,000, and those 1,000 can do 100, that's a billion people. And I don't know that I can get there, but I know I can get to 10,000. And so that's what I mean by trying to make a better America. There's just better values, more honesty, and just more acceptance.
Oh, I love this. I love it. Everyone wants a better world, but barely anyone ever does anything about it. And
Well, you know what, PJ, there are two things you said there, neither of which I agree with. That everyone wants a better world. I don't agree with that. I think there are unfortunately a lot of people that make that their living is that everything's falling apart. Let me scare the shit out of you so you keep watching.
True.
Okay. And that not enough people do something about it. I'll tell you, in my everyday life, I come into contact with one person after another that's doing their damnedest to be good parents, good partners, good citizens, good neighbors. The vast majority of the people that are around us are good, decent people. Don't believe
Absolutely.
the bullshit that you get out of the many divisions. The divisions are, for the most part, made up, because at our core, and of course you got the fringes, there's no question about it, but at the core, the vast majority of the people of this country are good, decent, hardworking, honorable, want to do the right things. And you know what? People like you, Fred, using your influence to do what frankly, it will take to get us back to a better place, which is better leadership. We see it at the national level. We see it at the state level in some of the states. Bad leadership makes for bad policy. Bad policy makes for bad outcomes. Bad outcomes impact people's lives adversely. So I commend you on what you're doing there, Fred, and we will be happy to add to the show notes any information for people who are interested in supporting that part. And also, of course, let's let people know where they can find you on Instagram. I know it's something with the word real, right? Real Fred Cary, or Fred Cary real, something like that, right? I forget.
It's official Fred Cary.
Official Fred Cary.
Yeah.
If you're an entrepreneur or aspiring to become an entrepreneur and you're not following Fred Cary, you're missing out. I've been at this for a long time, and I watch what Fred has to say. And week after week, I come away with some insights that are impactful to me. I also forward them to my son, who's 21 years old and an
Good.
aspiring entrepreneur. And I know that what Fred has to say would have an impact on him. So I encourage you to follow Fred. And I just want to thank you. You give us a lot of time, more time than we frankly expected to have with you. Fred Cary is an incredibly accomplished individual who is also a good guy and is trying to make the world a better place. And I feel deeply, deeply humbled that you shared some time with us. We are so amazed, PJ and I both. Our podcast, which we launched last year, is now a top 1% global popularity podcast. We have no idea how that happened, other than guests like you. We've had the great fortune of having amazing guests, one after the other, come in here and land, pearl after pearl of wisdom on our audience. Today was no exception. In fact, I was messaging PJ during the interview that this may have been, and PJ said it best in his response, the most impactful and useful interview we may have had. And we're deeply, deeply grateful to you for that.
Wow. Well, I know, PJ, you were going to probably throw some more praise at me, but let me interrupt for a second to say that I really feel honored, especially with you guys being in the top 1%. I do want to do this. I have, well, two things. Number one, ideapros.com, go on there, be a free member. Number two, we just created something with AI that we're pretty much going to give away, because I want to make better people and I want to make better businesses. So I have something. If you have a business idea, you have to answer 3 questions, and I'm going to give you a 70-page report in a day. And it's going to tell you everything that you need to know about your idea, how to monetize it, what the competitive landscape looks like, how to write a pitch deck for it. Literally, we created this AI tool that's insane, and it would cost you $20,000 to do something like this just a year ago. So go on there, be a free member. That's going to come up soon. And also, one last thing I want to do for your audience is I have a course on purpose-driven entrepreneurship. It's normally like $500. I want to give it away for free. You just need to know the code Go Big, and that's your code. If you go on official Fred Cary and hit my link tree, you'll see the course on there. Click on it, sign up for it. It's 15 modules, again, on purpose-driven entrepreneurship. Once you're done with it, you're really going to have a great foundation for going forward. Go big, and it's free.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And also, I did want to, first of all, I did want to, of course, throw praise on you, because I don't know, you're deserving of it. But also, just to preface, when I said that not a lot of people are doing anything about it, what I mean is not a lot of people are doing it with intention and on scale that Fred is doing, which I think is remarkable, because everyone wants to do better, right? Yeah. I think human nature, we want to help, we want to do better, but for you to actually have a plan and for you to go out there and say, I want to help 10,000 people, and this is the math behind it, and this is why I want to do it, I think that's amazing. And the fact that you're doing it. And Tal and I did not know about the free class and all of the amazing resources that you have that you're just throwing at our audience. We also are very appreciative of that as well. It's incredible.
Thank you. Thanks so much.